This time we're going to begin the funeral services. Mr. Daniel J. Zakon.
מזמור לדוד. אדוני רואי לו עכשיו בנוטשה ירבצני על מי מנוחות ינהלני. נפשי ישובב ינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי ילך בגץ המוות לא ירא כי אתה עמדי. שבתך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולך נגד צוררי. דשנת בשמן ראשי כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי. ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
Please join me in English in the words of the 23rd Psalm that Cantor just chanted. You can find them in the inside of your booklet. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We sometimes wonder why this psalm, the 23rd Psalm, was chosen by our tradition to be associated with moments like this one, moments when we are confronting grief and loss and yearning for someone that we've loved so much. I think there are some hints in the words about walking in the valley of the shadow of death, may relate to an experience that all of us are undertaking at this moment as we confront Danny's death. But also, I think about the words of a cup that overflows, a cup that runs over, a cup that overflows with blessings. And that represents both the blessings that Danny experienced in his life, of which there were many, too many to count, and also the blessing that all of us experience for having been able to share some time with him on this earth. So even though Danny's life, like all of our lives, had peaks and valleys, we believe, we hope that on balance, it is that cup that overflows with blessing that we take away as our central image in this moment. Elsewhere in Psalms, we read the words, Karov Adonai lenishberei lev. God draws close to the brokenhearted. And we here are among the brokenhearted today as we hold in our hearts, first and foremost, Danny's family, Lana, Jill, and Cary, along with Paul and Trisha, and Jordan, and Marc, and Lauren, and Michelle, and Mira, and Diane, and friends, Frank and Bobbie, and many other relations, friends, colleagues, co-conspirators, too many to name. Danny was a person of many deep relationships that lasted, in some cases, for many decades, for almost his entire life. And today we'll blend words from our ancient tradition with some reflections shared by some of you as we come together both to mourn his loss and celebrate the life that he led.
There's a discussion in the sacred teachings of the Talmud where one scholar says to the other that Jacob, our ancestor, never died. And the other says, you're mistaken. It says in the Bible he died, he was buried, he was mourned. How dare you say that he didn't die? And the response is, Mar zar'o b'chayim, afu b'chayim. As long as he leaves behind generations of family, he truly is never gone. And I know that Danny lives within each of you, and you will keep the most beautiful parts of him alive for many years to come. Danny was a contradiction within himself. He kept many aspects of his life close to the chest, and in other ways, he was the most gregarious, outgoing, talkative kibitzer that you could possibly meet. Lana told me that Danny would call out to her, I'm going for a walk just around the block. And an hour or more later, he'd return home. He couldn't help himself from stopping to chat with the neighbors, the postal or sanitary workers, a stray dog running around. He'd talk to everyone, anyone, it just didn't matter. Family clearly recalls vacation trips and enjoying a nice walk. Maybe it was along the beach or a boardwalk or the like. But after a short while, they would turn to realize Danny had trailed off at some point of their walk, and he was talking with some locals, or he was making a new friend at a water fountain. He was just a social omnivore. He just had to eat friendship and connectivity. It was quite routine that he might go to his doctor's appointment, return home, and Lana would say, well, what did the doctor have to say? And Danny would give her an extensive report about the doctor's family, about their recent trip, about how their grandchildren are doing. Nothing medical. One of the people he enjoyed chatting with was a dear friend, a long-time friend, Frank. And they spoke, you told me, an average of 3 times a day, very much about business, about the stock market. And Friday dinners with you, Lana and Bobbie, were staples of your social time. The last visit that they had, however, was, I believe, last Saturday. Bobbie and Frank came into his room. They would hold or shake hands. They exchanged some niceties. And then Lana told me both Frank and Danny nodded off. After all the talking over these many years, there really wasn't anything more left to say. That moment of being together just said it all. Danny, having grown up on the Great West Side of Chicago, had amassed and maintained very dear friends from that block. For many years, he was on the board of the GVS Club, a collection of GVS residents and expatriates who created a club with a founding mission of being a charitable organization. Danny liked that idea. He liked everything about GVS, about its people, and he always wore his blue GVS jacket with great pride. His adoptive parents, Samuel and Dorothy, were the only parents he ever thought of and never sought to research his biological family. How blessed he felt to be a Zakon and have been chosen as a young infant to be in their family's lives. Had he never been chosen by this family, his whole life, it goes without saying, but also his adult life would have been so different. Danny realized that the notoriety of his father, a very celebrated, shall we say, dermatologist, Dr. Zakon, opened doors for Danny that he might never have had his father been so connected. Danny had become, if I may, one of the chosen people by his parents. And how wonderful that his sister, Diane, would be brought into the family some 3.5 years later. 2 young children not having grown in their mother's stomach, but certainly in your parents' hearts. Diane recalls that her big brother would often offer her advice, whether it was solicited or not. You and Lana shared details about Danny's younger years. One great experience that he benefited from was after he had graduated from Austin High School. He had a summer abroad, and he was able to visit many of the major European capitals. Diane, you also filled in some details about growing up together at Austin Jewish Community Center. And you recalled very fondly how Rabbi Lehrfeld led your community for you. When Danny was 6, he was not a very outgoing boy, you told me, much more introverted. And so his mother began introducing him to sports, such as the Cubs and the White Sox. He would learn stats about the players and about the teams, which bolstered his facility in numbers. Faculty, not facility, faculty. And it was a nice skill for him to benefit from given his future career. She chose to root for the White Sox and Danny for the Cubs. That was the beginning of a long love story with him and the Cubbies. With a fortuitous turn of mazel, the day that Danny died, the Cubs beat the Sox 6-2. In his youth, Diane recalls, he was a conservative soul, you said, not taking too many chances. And as an adult, he remained somewhat the same. Sure, he liked Vegas and a small bet here and there, and yes, he was a guy playing the market, always playing the numbers, buy, sell, trade. But generally, I was told that he was very careful in how he dispersed his money. As we were tracking down a bit of Danny's professional history, Trisha noted that the company for which Danny worked, now Rothschild Wealth Partners, began as Rothschild and Company, with a tagline of being a financial, of their approach being a financial conservatism, which was a wonderful match for Danny Zakon. Why did he choose a field in finance? Well, Danny had first been invited by a friend of his, or maybe an associate of his father's, I don't recall, to try to give it a try. It stuck for some 50 years at Rothschild. Danny became obsessive with his love in the market and the stocks. Every day, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., he put in solid hours. Even in his retirement, he still worked those same hours on his home computer from 3 to 5. He sometimes would continue on watching CNBC to listen to their interpretation of the day's activities. If there were any chores or appointments to be made during that day, Lana said, Danny mandated that it had to start at 3:30 because he wasn't done until 3 o'clock. Danny liked the challenge of a good negotiation when it was a market deal, but in his off hours, you said he hated to negotiate things. From airplane tickets to seat assignments to car rentals, he despised that confrontation. He much preferred taking someone's word of honor, such as his doctor, or even a car dealer that offered Danny a price, and Danny felt that to be fair. He just didn't want to negotiate. Danny was much more of a pacifist than a challenger, but should someone upset him, I was told, he could be very unforgiving. On the tennis court, he could be very competitive. He loved the game. He played summer outdoor tennis and winter indoor tennis at various courts and various clubs. And Lana, you said he had achieved a number of very prized trophies that he had. At times, you got a bit tired of having them on your mantles, and you would place them down in the basement, only to find them back up on their mantles just within another day or two. He preferred talking to people face to face. He liked that interaction. He really despised technology, I was told, though he did come to learn how to use his flip phone, finally, to keep a lifeline to Schwab. Between Schwab and Barron's Financial Investment News, Danny, shall we say, had the world in his hands. But his hands were not always so useful when it came to mechanical dexterity. Not very handy at all around the house, family agreed. He did, however, become competent enough with technology that he utilized it in making trades, which was an important asset that kept him cognitively alert as he became just a bit older, he agreed. His learning curve for technology and a bit of that aging still had him relying on his go team, the people he always went to, Lana, Cary, and Schwab. Lana, you have always been Danny's go-to since you met on a date. It was set up by your cousin Mary, you said. And just after 2 years of dating, you would marry at the Sherman House, or maybe it was the Hotel Sherman, but it was here in Chicago. Lana, you shared that during your dating period, Danny invited you to your very first baseball game. You recall that it was cold. You recalled that you were sitting in the Wrigley bleachers, but you weren't interested in the game, you were interested in the guy. The two of you would be blessed for 62 years and 10 months of marriage. You raised your children, Cary and Jill, and they would bring in Trisha and Paul into your lives. You shared family memories about family trips to the west coast of California and the east coast of Florida and places like Colorado in the middle. The two of you would take trips such as Club Med, maybe alone, and other trips that you took your parents with you to Turkey. You and Dan were so happy to be blessed with the enjoyment of grandchildren with Jordan and Marc and Lauren and Michelle and Mira. How fortunate it was that Danny was able to speak to each of you just prior to his last day of life. He had expressed to others that no matter the imminent closure of his lifetime, that he had a good life, that he was content with what he had achieved. Ezahu Ashir, who is the richest person around? Our traditional teachings ask that, and they respond with the answer, Hasameach Bechalko, a person who can truly find contentment in their life. Danny passed away a man of great wealth. I'd like to invite his grandsons, Jordan, alias Carlos Alcaraz, and Marc, to offer some reflections of life with their grandpa.
They actually say he looks like me because I'm older, so I'll take that. Hearing Jaja tell me she wanted Marc and I to give a speech about Zadie, that's when it really hit me. I thought I'd still get to talk to him soon on one of our weekly phone calls where he asks us his favorite questions amongst many others. Hey, Jord, how's it going? Everything copacetic. Zadie was the only person that ever used that word. And I'll be honest, for the longest time, I had no idea what copacetic ever meant. I just nodded and say, yep, all is great. How are you doing? Zadie was always checking in on life, on work, on football. We had a long-standing $20 Bears-Packers bet every single year. And one year he actually mailed me $20 in cash. But let's be honest, Jaja, we beat the Bears about every game the last decade, so he probably short a few $100. So I'll send you a Venmo request here shortly. But laughter really was his best medicine. His laugh, all-time, contagious, unforgettable. You start by laughing at something together, then you laugh because he couldn't stop. And finally, you'd just be laughing at him because his laugh was that funny. It would take over the entire room. His laugh is something that I'll never forget. We'd always talk about his favorite team, as mentioned, the Cubbies, and reminisce the game that me, Marc, my mom went to when we beat the Giants in the 2016 playoffs, the year that they would go on to win the World Series. And I remember him crying to me after we won, tears of joy, happiness, never knowing if he'd live to see that moment. And he always asked me about my girlfriend, Allie. How's Allie doing? And since she works in the suburbs, he'd always remind me every single time, tell her to call me next time she's in Glenview so she can stop by for coffee and have breakfast with me. So in Zadie's honor, I'll keep making those Bears-Packers bets, keep pretending I know how my stock market is doing, and keep saying copacetic like I actually know what it means. Hope you're up there watching, supplying chili sauce for everyone on their omelets, and don't ever stop laughing. Love you, Zadie.
Danny, or Zadie, as my siblings and myself referred to him, was a true ray of sunshine in everyone's life. He was an eternally positive man, and it showed in the way he carried himself each and every day. Our conversations always tended to focus on the good things, life updates, recent travel, good food we've eaten, or simply just catching up on how my friends or girlfriend are doing. The only times he would ever speak negatively involved discussing the current state of Chicago sports or getting an earful from him about how much he had to pay for parking in the city the other day compared to when he was a kid. He was truly authentic and always someone I could turn to when I had a lot on my mind. But as our Zadie's physical state worsened, he would remain the same grandfather that we knew and loved. I would receive the same weekly phone calls, always asking me when I was free to meet up on a weekend afternoon for lunch. And no matter how he was feeling when I was with him, he never showed it. All I could see was how genuinely happy he was to simply hear about my day. I will always remember my grandfather for what a kind, caring person he was. I know everyone in this room feels the same way. And as I reflect on his life, it has occurred to me how truly inspired I am by the relationships that he has with those close to him. He was an incredible father to his 2 children, an even more incredible grandfather to us and Mira, and most importantly, a loving husband to my grandmother, whom he was married to for 62 years. And it's only fitting that on the day of his passing, his favorite team, as Cantor mentioned, the Cubs, won 6-2. We love you, Sadie.
What beautiful dividends, what nachas he had earned from the love of all of his grandchildren. Extended family, of course, as well. Nephew Robert, who's here, great niece and great nephew, Cambria, Michael, cousins, David, and others. He just loved being a part of this family. I encouraged Jill and Cary to share with me yesterday some memories of their dad, but not to tell me too much so that we didn't cross-reference our words and share some of the same thoughts up here. Jill was loquacious, and Cary told me nothing, saving all of the good material for now, and now is now. So I'd like to invite you and your mom and your sister to come forward and share your thoughts.
First.
Go for it.
It doesn't matter. This is all way too surreal. I'm like in a fog. But one of the greatest lessons I learned from my dad was how to love deeply, wholly, proudly, fiercely. He was always there to support us every step of the way. If there was a bad day anyone ever had, we didn't have to talk about it. He just showed up. He would just show up at my house just to be there and to show unconditional love. Fierce love for my kids. It's always hard. It's beautiful. Proud joy for each one of them. I know, like, he couldn't text. He didn't want to text, but he would always say, I got to talk to the kids. So they didn't understand, like, why can't he text? It's not like why he couldn't. He just didn't know how. So, you know, they were amazing and calling him and keeping him happy. It was enough. That's all he needed. And then with the addition of Paul and Becca and Danielle and Haley and Allie and Jackson, there were more people in his family to love, more stories to share, or repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. So he asked about everybody all the time. Just loved his family and loved his friends. And one of the things that was just always touching is that on Saturday when you told me that Frank and Bobbie came and Dad and Frank held hands and smiled at each other, that was just beautiful. So thank you for the friendship for my dad and all my dad's other amazing friends they've had forever. All my friends that knew my parents so well, because I was the house that everybody hung out in, and for good times and the times where we did some things that we shouldn't have done. My parents were always forgiving. My dad always laughed because he loved it all. And the way he loved my mom and supported her, and we will always be there to support you.
You're done, honey.
I think.
Can always
You want to say something else? I'll talk last.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, there's a lot of faces that are very familiar to me. It's been a while, though. Live in Northern California and don't get back too frequently. But thanks for coming and showing up and supporting us. What do I got here? So my dad, I've known him to be like a very generous soul, very generous spirit, especially to family. And growing up, he attended all my sporting events. He would play with me tennis and baseball and basketball, and he was always generous with his time as well. You can always look to him to go and connect with him over some sporting. That seems to be a theme that the boys talked about as well. And he's also it was amazing. Our little girl is 13 now, and he loved his connection and generosity and his spirit toward Mira. They had a really sweet relationship, even though mostly remote. Every time she lost a tooth, he would send a packet of money. Sounds very similar to what you got, Jordan. And we'd call them $80. That's how she got most of her wealth here is, accumulation of $80. And, he would always fly out, obviously with Jaja as well, my mom, for every birthday. They were like clockwork. They would make the time to come out for every birthday that she ever had, which was super sweet and obviously, again, generous in time and spirit. And one other thing that he has with Mira that was kind of cute is they had a love of word searches. So he would fill out half of a word search and mail it to her, and she would finish it up and mail it back, or vice versa. And it was just a cute little thing that they did together that was super enjoyable. I loved watching that. And I believe Jordan probably mentioned it too, is growing up he had this infectious laugh. Normally, it was on his own jokes.
Bad jokes.
And they may have fell a little flat, but it's that laughter. And I'm sure many of you have heard it before. And he just goes on and on. He can't control it. It just comes out. It bursts. And sooner or later, he's got everyone rolling. And we don't even know why we're laughing, but we're laughing with him or at him a little bit, but with him. And it was just goofy. But everyone remembers it, so that was great. Oh, yeah. She's almost grown out of it a little bit, but on her own, Mira developed this Zadie laugh. She had the exact same kind of laughter. It was kind of strange, a little surreal at times, but she had this also Zadie laugh that she did. Yeah. He also had a love of repeating stories. Mira also has this love of repeating stories, so the bond of generations still continued and does. Yeah, growing up, we spent a lot of time together watching Cub games, watching Blackhawk games, and I grew up in the right era, right? Watched almost every Michael Jordan game. We spent a lot of time, and it was just a great place to bond. I don't think Mom was there. I think she was making us food the whole time, but it was really like things that we bonded over the years, and it was super sweet, super kind, and things that I'll always take with me. We'll go with one funny story, at least funny for me and funny for him. I came home from California one day, and I eat a little differently than they do. So I brought Indian food. I brought a dal, lentils, and I brought some spices. And he went up to shower, and I'm like, great, I'm gonna prepare some food. And I made a tarka, which is kind of like toasting the spices in oil. And he comes running downstairs in his towel, thinking that the house is burning. It's like, what's going on? What's going on? And just to learn, all I am doing is cooking. And that's one of his repeated stories. He loved to tell me that all the time, that I was burning down his house. So, I was 80. But then on a good, happy food story is another great memory for me is when he would go to in Evanston, and those who know Cooney's in Evanston, wow, that was my first taste of sushi. It's still the standard for me, but we went a number of times by ourselves. I know that he would go by himself religiously, like every weekend. And it was his happy place. And so when I think of him, when I have my vision of him, I see him at the counter schmoozing with Cooney and his sous chefs and just loving life. And seeing, like, I think the same people at the restaurant at the same time early for lunch together, and then he can schmooze everybody. Yeah, and that's pretty much it for now. So again, thanks for everyone for attending.
Thank you both.
Bobbie wants to say.
Oops, sorry.
I didn't realize it was.
Okay. First, I just want to thank you all for being here. For Jill, for Cary, for me, for Diane. It's what makes me happy and grateful for your kindness, your thoughtfulness, your support, your love. And that's what we carry with us. And he did as well. So first, thank you for that. And to my husband of almost 63 years, Danny, I'll miss your smile. I'll miss your laughter. I'll miss your kindness. I miss your caring. I miss your partnership. I miss you being here with me. I miss, as you can see, the Thai sauce. He had that every morning on his eggs, every morning. It will leave a huge hole, but we have memories for sure. But again, thank you. As we celebrated our 60th anniversary almost 3 years ago, we had the pleasure of having dinner together with part of our family, not all of it, not the California segment. And I felt that the occasion, I needed to write something. That's what I wanted to do. So I wrote something that I read at that time at this 60th anniversary dinner. And Jill had asked for a copy of it. And then Jill and Cary and Trisha had a pillow made with what I wrote and pictures, family pictures. And I cherish this. I would like to read what I wrote at 60. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's you, sometimes it's us, sometimes it's Lana, sometimes it's Danny, sometimes it's both. Sometimes we're happy, sometimes we're sad. Sometimes we're just being okay with whatever, which was really Danny. Sometimes I was right, sometimes you were right. Sometimes we were both wrong. Who knew 60 years ago what the future had in store? But we did it together, and we were committed to whatever life had for us. We were partners for life with love. I leave you with that. And the rabbi had asked if Danny had any nicknames, and I couldn't think of any, but he did very much like to be called Danny Boy because he was born on March 17th, which was a holiday, his. So anyway, again, thank you all for your support and your future support and your future caring. We appreciate that. Okay, be careful.
We heard Jill share that the Zakon home was the epicenter of fun for her and Cary's friends. They said her dad never really was a complainer much about the noise in the house or the kids in the house, nor did he overtly complain about business or medical concerns. He really didn't open up to many people about the small or the big problems he may have encountered, but negative things were not to be shared, I was told. I believe, Diane, you told me that it was your mom that told you and Danny when Lana was to come to the house for the first time, I think, that you were visiting, if I've gotten the story correct. And she had said to the two of you, when your girlfriend comes over and asks, how are things, just say all is good. No family secrets, nothing to be expressed. And Danny held on to that suggestion forever. His Iron Chef skills at the barbecue during summers was renowned. He talked about his salmon on the grill and his turkey burgers on the grill. But once he retired, and you, Lana, were still working, he took much more serious approach to cooking, to being in the kitchen. He liked the going to the market as well, the shopping market, which was just another great place to schmooze with the folks behind the fish department or the bakery or you name it. At Beth Shalom, we recall Danny having served on the Board of Trustees as a financial officer and how often the two of you attended and supported so many events at our community. His punctuality in arriving for high holiday services annually was flawless. He and another group of Meshuggahs would line up outside the door of the synagogue around an hour prior to the doors opening so they could be first to select their chosen seats. Danny always chose a seat on the aisle. Like his father, he was a man of tradition, a man of habit. He had to have that aisle seat. And that aisle seat was also a great schmoozing spot because everybody had to walk in and walk out past you, and it gave him a chance to say Happy New Year or whatever he felt. I will recall Danny with great affection and with great respect. We should all acknowledge and be grateful to him. He had served his time in the National Guard to help be a part of the guard of our country. Danny Zakon was a practical man, a frugal man, a private man, a social man, a realistic man, as he confronted the final stages of his life. He knew he wasn't going to get a second shot at recovering, and he bravely accepted the inevitable. Near the very end, you, his family, shared with me that he uttered the following: I need my shoes. It's time to go home. And now Danny is back home in the great GVS, not the great Westside, but God's Venus Sanctum, the Lord's beautiful sacred place. Rest there in peace, our dear friend. Amen. Let us stand as we offer a final prayer. מלא רחמים שוכן במרומים, המצאנו כנכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע המזהירים, את נשמת גדליה בן שמואל וצ'רנה שלח לעולמו. בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו, ענה בעל הרחמים, הסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור חיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, ואנוח בשלום משכבו, ונאמר Amen.
Please join me in English in the inside of your booklet, in the middle paragraph. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, Grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence, among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament unto the soul of Daniel J. Zakon, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring him under the cover of thy wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may his repose be peace. Amen. You're welcome to be seated.
Ladies and gentlemen, the interment service will continue at West Lawn Cemetery located at 7801 West Montrose in Norridge. The family will be returning to the Zakon residence at 2429 Rebecca Lane in Glenview. They'll be together today following the interment till 8:30, then Thursday from 5:30 to 8:30. Please note we revised the folders because some of it says 9 o'clock, but it is 8:30 and it is a hard stop at 8:30. So please don't show up at 8:30 because it'll be over at 8:30. The minion will be at 7:30 p.m. each evening, tonight and tomorrow. Please note the information about the Shiva coordinator. As a reminder, please take your umbrellas. Those are the front door, the front area. For those of you who will be driving in the funeral procession to the cemetery, the procession will be forming in the parking lot. Please obtain an orange safety funeral sticker to place on the right-hand side of your windshield. Have your bright lights and hazard lights on at all times. For additional measures of safety, we will be providing a car in the back of the procession to hopefully keep other cars from entering the procession. Please use your horn liberally as you're going through the intersections, and please keep in mind it is raining. So everyone has their headlights on. Just use caution and common sense. Lastly, for those of you from the family that have been asked to serve as pallbearers, please come forward. And as Lana so graciously said, anybody who feels a need or a want to be a pallbearer, just come down. At this time, I invite everyone to please rise and stand in place as we escort the casket of Daniel J. Zakon along with his family, Cantor Store, Rabbi Chapman from the chapel. Then you may return to your cars.